Okay, we can get started with the session.
Hello everyone, my name is Joshua, and I'm in my final year studying psychology at the University of Surrey. I am the founder and president of Surrey Neurotech Society, the fourth in the UK. And over the past year, I've also been exploring entrepreneurship, having recently received a foundership award, and I'm currently working on patenting my first invention. Over a year ago now, I had no idea like how any of this would happen. It was just my aspiration. I had a rough guide, but it was more just a will and a curiosity to, take this gamble and to try and go for the wild card option, figuring things out as they kind of went along. So today I would like to share with you through my journey into neurotech, not just to tell you about my story, but to give you something practical you can use to build your own. We'll briefly look at what neurotech actually is, a bit about what I've been working on, and then most importantly, I'll share the lessons and advice that have helped me get started. So whether you're someone who wants to get involved into neurotech but isn't sure how to begin, or if you already have some ideas but want to refine your approach, this is all for you. So my hope is that by the end you'll have a much clearer sense of how to embark on your own odyssey into this exciting field. So before I talk about my journey, let's make sure we're all kind of on the same page about what neurotechnology is. At its core, neurotechnology is the interaction between the brain and technology. Um, we use it to either record what the brain is doing or to change how it functions. We typically use neurotech for three reasons. One, to restore lost function. A great example is brain-computer interfaces. Companies like Synchron are developing devices that allow people with paralysis, including diseases such as ALS, to communicate again. The device, for example, sits inside a blood vessel in the brain, picks up the brain signals, translates them to a text-to-speech mimicking the person's lost voice, and utilizing this AI technology, it allows these users to speak to their loved ones again. Um, Two, the other use of neurotechnology is to enhance abilities. This is where brain stimulation comes in, using tiny amounts of electricity, magnetism, ultrasound, or any other method to alter the brain networks. We're talking about like things like boosting attention or accelerating learning or improving memory. The third way neurotech is used is to understand the brain better. This includes approaches such as MRI scans to understand the structure of the brain simulations and connectomes, digital accurate representations of the brain to tailor treatments to people and to like better understand diseases. And also wearables that record your brain activity to infer things like alertness or tiredness or focus. What really excites me about neurotech is it's broad in every way. It's broad in its applications, in its little niche topics, and its approaches, and really broad in the backgrounds of people working in it. And there are countless ways to get involved and contribute. So why get into neurotech? Well, because joining this field means you'll be solving real problems for real people. We're facing urgent challenges that need solutions, long waiting lists for ADHD diagnosis and treatment. In Surrey alone, it's more than 11,000. Mental disorders we still don't fully understand and are unable to treat. We need personalized interventions, not one size fits all approaches and trial and error approaches where patients are having to try drug after drug with side effects that just isn't tailored towards them. And the aging population, where we're now facing 7.7 million new Alzheimer's diagnoses worldwide each year. Another reason why neurotech is so compelling is that it's one of the most interdisciplinary fields that exists. you often see rivalry between STEM and humanities and people comparing degrees, but in neurotech, every area matters because it all fits together to solve the puzzle. We need engineers to build the devices, but we need the computer scientists to write the algorithms, psychologists and clinicians to diagnose and interpret, the ethicists and philosophers to guide responsible use, and entrepreneurs to scale research into solutions. And often you'll need to venture into each other's fields and pick up and match and mix and match skills. You know, more and more now you're seeing psychologists, especially at PhD level, more so than undergrads, having to learn how to program. And the other really exciting part for me when it comes to neurotech is how it just feels like a wild frontier. You know, the brain is still mysterious. We still don't fully understand it, and like the hard conscious of the hard problem of consciousness and how to solve certain mental disorders and neurodegenerative diseases. Ethics and standards are still under development. Funding is accelerating, and breakthroughs are happening fast. The stage of neurotech currently, I would compare it to, you know, computing in the 70s or internet in the 90s or AI in the 2010s. We're at the ground floor currently, but we're slowly going up, and you have the chance to genuinely shape the direction of one of the most crucial fields that exists today, influencing how brain technology develops, who it reaches, and how responsibly it's used. So this is just a quick snapshot of where neurotech shows up today. The two main areas are for clinical and well-being applications. In clinical neurotech, you can see medical devices such as neuroprosthetics for people with limb loss. You have deep brain stimulation implants for treating like movement disorders and Parkinson's, epilepsy. Transcranial magnetic stimulation for OCD, resistant depression, stroke rehab, cochlear implants to restore hearing, etc. The wellness applications target stress and enhance meditation and focus, mostly through EEG wearables, so that measuring the electrical brain activity, and sometimes applying low intensity stimulation with like headband devices, for example. So you'll see companies like Muse or Emotive operate in this space. Looking beyond these two, neurotech is going to be integrated nearly everywhere. Workplaces are going to be using it for productivity. Education are going to explore how you can use it to enhance learning, and even maybe upskilling, for example, cognitive enhancement for upskilling. Even the gaming industry is getting involved. Neuralink has already trolled their BCI users in one of the experiments, controlling Call of Duty, you know, characters in lobbies, like running around aiming and shooting using decoded brain signals. So honestly, at the rate neurotech is developing, you'll probably be able to play video games with your brain before GTA 6 comes out. To ground neurotech more into reality and away from a pure hype train angle, it's important to discuss where there is remarkable promise, but there's also simultaneously like ethical dilemmas. It's really important we take inspiration from fields like psychology, especially in modern times, where ethics is prioritized rather than a Silicon Valley approach of moving fast and breaking things. Because in the case of neurotech, this would mean breaking brains, right? Breaking people. You don't want to do that. I think the first major problem in neurotech currently is the regulatory uncertainty. Right now, a lot of neurotech applications and how you collect and manage brain data, there's no legal basis for it. It's a gray zone. So it's really hard to like trust companies and regulate companies when it comes to neurotech devices and uses. It's a big issue for if a company comes into wellness, for example, they don't need any medical validation. and they target their devices towards a vulnerable group without understanding the long-term consequences. Negative effects of this would spill to the rest of the industry and not just damage the users, which would be terrible, but the field as a whole, as it would generate a stigma towards neurotech solutions that are proven and effective. The promising news is that regulation is catching up a bit. Chile passed the world's first ever neuro rights bill in 2021, and the EU, Canada, the US are all moving towards that direction as well, with drafting up frameworks. The lag between innovation and law is real, but the conversation is happening. So the question is, can we iterate fast enough to protect people without over-regulating and strangling the beneficial research and innovation? Secondly, is the question proposed by philosophers such as Nick Bostrom of cognitive inequality. For cognitive enhancement, if it is expensive and not accessible, this could prioritize wealthy groups over less wealthy ones. So imagine job listings which would prioritize someone who's cognitively enhanced and has access to wealth to get that treatment, where they have enhanced memory and better attention and focus. They're going to get the job over someone who is unenhanced and is unable to access. So this could really exacerbate existing socioeconomic inequality, but now on a cognitive level, creating a two-tier cognition society. There's also a debate on who decides what normal cognition is. Many people who are we consider gifted have neurodivergent traits, for example, like obsessive hyperfocus. How do we determine what traits are problematic and in what contexts? When we talk about ADHD intervention, are we treating suffering or are we enforcing a neurotype conformity and making everyone's brains homogeneous? There's also the counter argument where people with untreated ADHD have higher accident rates, they have lower educational outcomes, higher rates of substance use and suicide. For many, neurostimulation or medication is restoration of baseline functioning. The disability neurodiversity lens matters completely, but so does the lived reality of people whose ADHD generally harms their life expectancy and well-being. This is critical for disability justice, techno-ableism. The risk is that neurotech becomes a tool to cure disabled people instead of building accessible societies. The argument that people don't need to be cured at all. Some argue we shouldn't pressure people like wheelchair users to use neuro implants to walk when we should be building ramps into all our buildings instead of stairs. We shouldn't frame autism or deafness as problems when they're differences that could thrive in the right environment. Forcing narratives onto disabled communities can be argued as a form of structural violence. But we can't also ignore the transformative nature of these technologies for certain groups. An ALS patient who can speak again to his family members for the first time via brain-computer interface isn't being forced to be normal. They're regaining their autonomy, their agency. Some neurodivergent people explicitly want tools to manage traits that cause them suffering. These tensions can't be resolved by science alone, which is why we need ethicists and philosophers, and actually placing affected communities at the table from the start. In neurotech, you have the responsibility of critically assessing how your work and contributions affect others, whether you're enhancing autonomy or taking it away, alleviating suffering or exacerbating it. So, talking a bit now about my starting point and my breakthrough. In 2023, in September, I was in my second year of psychology, modest grades. I had a list of all the different career paths you could choose, and I narrowed it down to clinical psychology, workplace psychology, and the wild card option of being a neurotech entrepreneur. After a late night conversation with a friend in my uni house, a switch just flipped, and instantly I had immediately ruled out the other two options in favor of the more moonshot one of being a neurotech entrepreneur. I scrolled through my university's placement website for openings, I talked to tutors, and it became clear there was no clear path into neurotech due to a lack of partnerships with companies working in the field. So I began cold emailing and cold messaging people and targeting startups and academics and labs. A combination of 21 of these startups, companies, academics, all rejected my applications. Some didn't apply, some told me there's no space, some told me they just weren't able to. It was around March I sent what would become my final but successful email. The head of psychology at Surrey, it turns out, was Roy Cohen-Kadosh, a cognitive neuroscientist and pioneer of non-invasive electrical neurostimulation approaches. After searching other universities and locations, it turned out there was a neurotech specialist right here at Surrey. He responded positively, so we jumped on a call. It went well, and just like that, I had my foot in the door to my dream industry. Now, some of you planning or searching for a placement, I can definitely relate to how tough it is. It can feel like running a gauntlet sometimes. During my search, I had this metaphor in my head that sounds really bizarre, that I'd visualized that I needed to walk up and down a busy city street until one day the piano fell on my head. And what I mean by this is just like the American sport and slapstick trope of pianos falling on people. I needed a very rare moment to get struck by and get that opportunity to enter neurotech. And by walking up and down the street, this would maximize the chances of that unique opportunity hitting me. I needed to be persistent with my routine to maximize my success chances of securing a placement. You could say it was lucky for me to be, by happenstance, be at the same university at the same time as a former Oxford faculty alumni professor who recently just joined. But I specifically chose Surrey due to its location near networks like London and having an attractive psychology program that would draw in faculty members like Roy and being near areas like London where I could build a network. All you need is to get your foot in the door ever so slightly, just so you have to be ready and you have to be patient and you have to be clinical enough to convert that chance into your experience. Read papers, build your knowledge, follow newsletters, like people on LinkedIn, join communities by attending conferences and hackathons and speaker sessions, build your network to have access to a feed that constantly updates you with what's happening in neurotech and what opportunities are available. For example, I joined the Imperial Neurotech WhatsApp chat, and that has people regularly posting about latest grant programs and events and things that I would not have known about. You need to plug yourself into the neurotech environment by joining these communities. Work smart and persistently, and once you're in, you're in. So September 2024 was my first real breakthrough. I joined the Cognition Learning Plasticity Lab with Roy Cohen-Kadosh, working on non-invasive neurostimulation. The lab was mostly postdocs and PhD students, some in Surrey, some in Oxford. And suddenly I was in the middle of discussions about computation, AI, and programming, and cognitive neuroscience. So I was reading these papers and having to Google every 3 lines the terminology to try and understand it. My first project was helping a PhD student bring an abandoned closed-loop neurostimulation program back to life and to get it running in the lab systems. And then helped with hands-on learning acquisition neurostimulation trials of helping people learn languages. And the lab was a very autodidactic environment, very independent. So I took advantage of this because my first meeting with Roy, he said, you don't work for the uni, you don't work for me, you work for yourself. So I ran with that. And within my first week, I proposed an idea for a novel neurostimulation approach, which led to us planning an opinion paper together. One of the highlights of the year is definitely being invited to co-author a book chapter of Roy and Dame Glenys Breakwell on future directions in psychology, talking about things from AI to wearables to digital mental metrics. It was definitely a bit surreal and it was very exciting to write about. So this is a bit about non-invasive electrical stimulation. As you can see, users have to complete a task whilst they're receiving the stimulation. We place electrodes on the scalp and apply a very small current. You can barely feel it, and sometimes you don't. And this will last for 20 to 40 minutes typically. And when stimulation stops, this alters the brain connectivity with lasting effects for days to weeks. The limitation of this is that it's not magic. You have to be doing a task whilst you're receiving a stimulation. So, for example, if you want to boost your attention, you have to have the correct dose whilst performing an attention task. So during the rest of my placement, moving on to the more innovation side of things, I started getting involved in early stage invention meetings, working with the university IP and patent teams. They deemed it to be a patentable invention. So we're handling data currently before we can move forward. I also had the opportunity to travel abroad to the University of La Laguna in Spain, Tenerife, for a research visit where we worked on like hyperscanning projects, which is a technique where you simultaneously record brain activity from two or more people at the same time to study the neural basis of real-time social interactions, revealing how the brain synchronize during communication and cooperation and empathy and teamwork. And finally, for my invention idea, I was awarded £4,000 foundership funding to start developing my own idea. So over the summer, I was able to create a business plan and receive mentorship, go to the workshops, and figure out how I could commercialize this prototype and invention. Another one of my achievements was founding one of the first neurotech societies in the UK, the fourth one. I was inspired by the other three amazing societies, King's College London, Imperial and Oxford. I saw the opportunity and I seized it. I made the Instagram page, I created the committee application, Google Doc, and I put posters with my poor Canva skills advertising the society. And a few months later, we were 45 members strong and ratified by the student union. So my advice is definitely don't exist in a silo if you're going to start a society. You are not the only one in the world. Bridge out and forge relationships for events and collaborations with other universities and other societies at your university. Especially making the most of virtual connections and virtual events. And I get it, it can be really nervy becoming a leader. I did feel quite uncomfortable about it at first, as it was really new to me and I didn't like speaking in front of crowds and people. But if you have the idea to be a leader, you have it in you to become one. You know, anyone can build, no matter your anxiety, your doubts, your skill level. All you need is the commitment to grow as a person along the way and the will to not give up. So, here's what I'd suggest. First, do something real. It doesn't matter whether it's an internship or helping on a project or hackathon or starting a society. Once you've done one real thing, the second one becomes so much easier. Momentum and opportunity just snowballs. Second, stay close to people who talk about neurotech. Join communities where opportunities are going to appear. And ideally, find someone a step ahead of you. This could be a PhD student or a professor or someone in industry. Just learn and shadow from them because they will be able to show you the ropes. Like Roy himself founded his own neurotech company a couple years before, so he was able to really know what to do with my idea. He was able to guide me through the IP and the patent process and direct me to the transfer technology office. Who you know is absolutely vital. So if you can share your journey publicly, you know, post here and there on LinkedIn, presentations, it increases your visibility and some of the opportunities will start coming to you. So basically just increase your surface area. The more rooms you're in and the more people who know you exist, the more likely something will open. So I'll leave you with this. There's a future out there for you if you dare to try. In my opinion, failure and success aren't inherent states. They're not good or bad by themselves. What matters is what you do when you face them. You get rejected. So how do you respond? You lose out on a placement opportunity that you thought would change everything. But what if that ends up being so much better for you than you could have ever imagined? It's important to visualize and plan, but don't be too attached to outcomes. Have multiple different plans that branch out. Rejection and results that don't fall in your favor, they hurt, of course. I know that. We all know that. But it's important to always move forward after rejection and keep moving forward until you arrive at your destination. And here's the thing, it might not be what you originally envisioned, it might be something so much better. So, pause a break, persistently cold call, position yourself for that piano, put yourself in a position with the highest chances of success, develop your network, send those emails, live near neurotech hubs and join neurotech communities, launch your own projects. You need to create your own luck, take initiative, reach out, follow up, put yourself where opportunities live, learn from every no and use it to adjust, not to stop. Be proactive, ask for responsibility, and put your own ideas forward. You've got this, so go build something.
Okay, thank you so much for that session, Joshua. It was a great session. If we have any questions, please leave them in the chat box for him to answer. If not, then we can go ahead and conclude the session. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes for any questions that you may have.
Yeah, so how do I plan to move forward with my idea? So currently I've integrated it into my dissertation for my final year. So I've kept Roy on as my mentor, my supervisor, my dissertation. I have a prototype I've been building, so I'm going to collect real world data and hopefully it's successful and I can file that patent. After I graduate, I want to look into funding programs and try and join something like an accelerator or like a proof of concept fund to develop it into something commercializable. Also, thank you for the thank you comments. It's good. I'm glad it's helped some of you. How do I start? Yeah, so I'd say definitely utilize the internet, right? Build like a LinkedIn profile, go through and connect with people in neurotech, so students and CEOs and people who work at neurotech companies. Draw up a list of all the best neurotech labs and like societies and people. Follow them. It's really hard at the start because a lot of connections are shut off, but once you get going, you'll be able to open it up and connect with a lot of people. I'd say also at your university, leverage the programs they have, any of the entrepreneur programs, put your ideas forward and try and find a faculty member there who best fits what you want to go into. So, for example, Roy was mine. Yeah, I think that's when opportunities come along, try and manufacture your own luck. Put yourself into positions where opportunities are going to appear, and when they do, be clinical to actually take them. Yeah, of course. I can share the slides. I'll put that in the chat. I'll put that in the WhatsApp. Of course, no worries.
Okay, if we do not have any other questions, we can go ahead and conclude the session. Thank you so much for your time, Joshua, for being here, taking the time out of your busy schedule and being a part of STEM Quest 3.0. It was a wonderful session, and your interest, I wish you the very best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thank you so much. It was great to be here. Thank you for having me here.
Of course.